Well, and there's a number of KPIs on the CRM was basically we had to pull up a file and within 2 to 5 seconds we had to be dialing the number. So the data needed to be where it needed to be in order for the sales associate to be able to quickly dial the number. So between clicking on opening up the contact file and clicking on the property that we're going to be discussing, we basically had to quickly analyze it and understand what the objective, what the call was going to be. And so one of the KPIs was a number of calls and touch points. So, and then we logged every call. So as we're talking, we're logging our conversation. And so the volume of calls and the number of files moved on to the next salesperson above you were tracked. The other thing that were tracked as well is, the number of lease abstracts that we did, the time that it took us to complete a proposal, the time that it took us to complete tenant profiles, city profiles. Everything was being measured because the whole production line in the proposal, you have the production line of the lease abstracts for people who are physically reading documents and creating lease abstracts to the people that are writing the tenant profiles, the lease, and then the city profiles. And then all that has to come together pretty much at the same time so that the next person can write the executive summary on these offering memorandums. And keep in mind, these are institutional assets. So the largest single asset that we sold when I was there was the U.S. Bank Corp Tower. And I'm going off of memory here, but I want to say there was probably about 300 tenants. We had a conference room full of file boxes when they sent in all the due diligence materials that we had to go through. We had to go through every page. And so there was KPIs on how fast we got through the lease abstracts, how accurate they were when they're completed, the valuations and the rent rolls. I mean, imagine the rent roll on that project. And so everything was being measured because it didn't matter whether we were underwriting 2 assets or 20 assets, the timeline was still the same, right? The timeline for delivery was still the same. So we have to be hyper focused, hyper efficient on absolutely everything. And that's where 1 month we could be heavily on calls, but also on underwriting assets and creating proposals. And then the next month could be a little bit light. And so there's a greater focus on the calls that never went down, but now pushing more data up, adding new markets. We always went by counties. So basically we pick a state and a county and we add in new markets, new assets to the database. So we're always pushing to get proposals done in underwriting, or we're always pushing to get more assets into the database. So keep in mind, unlike a local broker, our territory was from Denver west, all major markets, Class A assets, office, industrial, retail. And so there wasn't a building from Denver west that wasn't in our database. There wasn't a building from Denver west where we hadn't had a conversation with an individual. And so it was a large territory. And again, our KPIs were very simple. The KPIs set the standard to make sure that if we took on a new marketplace, we can inventory it. And Palmer's argument, or not argument, his pitch was this: it doesn't matter where the property is located. Within 30 days, I will know the asset and the marketplace equal to, if not better than anybody that's been in that marketplace their entire life. And that was an accurate statement because we did a lot of work to understand the market, the asset. Bill personally visited every property. And so we did a lot of work. And so when he did pitch, we talked to everybody within that marketplace. So we really did know the asset. And that's what drove a lot of people crazy, is that it was a cohesive team approach to these markets, where we were competing against individual agents and they were competing against a team of 16 plus.